Video games have been around for many decades. We've played our fair share of video games, but can we narrow it down to our favorite gaming moments?
Pour the coffee.
Top of the mustache to you, and welcome to episode 5 of Mustaches and Coffee. Where the topic goes, nobody knows. I'm Isaac.
I'm Ben.
Glad to have all you mustache and coffee lovers with us. It's great to see you, Ben. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing fantastic, even though it's snowing outside.
Yes. It is not fun, even though we're in February. We got dumped with snow here in Ohio, and I'm with you. I'm not happy about it, but other than the snow, how you feeling? How getting good rest in? You feeling better than you have in the last few weeks? I know it's been kind of rough on you with work and such.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about this week, it just felt like it would never end.
Yeah,
It's one of those weeks that was just very long. Probably because it's been kind of cold, but overall, just excited to get into another podcast episode and discuss things that I'm excited about.
I'm with you. Yep, it was a long week for me too. I actually had Monday off, but it still felt like a long week. So
Nice.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Well, before we jump into our main topic, I'm excited like you are, but let's catch up a little bit. I'll ask you, what's brewing in your life?
So I this week I as you will see on our Instagram page at Mustaches and Coffee, we have a new t-shirt that I am currently wearing. It's very
Very nice.
comfortable. So hopefully eventually we can get some and have them as giveaways, but really not too much going on. Like I said, it was snowing outside. I saw a bunny out my window and
Huh.
the funny thing is it has a place where it lives, so it dumped a bunch of snow. It came back, it looked lost, like, "Where's my home?" So, other than that, yeah, not too much going on. What about you?
Well, that sounds pretty pretty much what I was seeing with animals outside too. It looked like they were very lost. There was a lot of snow dumped, so I do feel for the animals right now. It was a fake out spring, but yeah, for me it's been pretty nice. Like I said, I had Monday off, so just kind of caught
Nice.
up on some things. Kind of goes along with our topic today. Finally went ahead and it's been out for a few months, but the kids have been wanting it. We got Super Mario Wonder, so I've been playing with the
Ooh,
kids,
nice.
going through that. It's as we talk about it in our topic, it's to me like the next sequel to Super Mario World because
Okay.
there's been Mario games after that, but they've kind of gone their own way. This one kind of feels like this was a true sequel to it. I'm still playing through it, so I don't have a full scope on it, but so far I'm enjoying it. It's been a lot of fun. It kind of takes you back to those good old days when you're just a kid and just playing a game. You don't had other stresses or worries going on. So, especially being with my kids, that's the only thing I'm worrying about in the moment. So,
Yeah.
but other than that, just you know, again, we can't mention the snow enough. It's just kind of a shock to us because it was like in the 50s this whole week. So that's why we're kind of It's just like this came out of nowhere. It was literally like somebody just dumped snow on us. So I'm happy to be home and not out driving in it, though. I feel for anyone that has to go through the snow today or through the weekend if it's still not cleared out. So let's go right ahead, jump into our main topic. More than likely, you can think of a video game that you have fond memories of. There's been so many games throughout the years, and each have their own personal charm. So today, we're going to talk about just a few of our favorite gaming moments. Doesn't exactly have to be a game, so to say. It can be just an experience that we had. So we'll go into talking about it in more detail. Ben, why don't you go ahead and kick things off?
Okay, so this is actually the first video game I've ever played. I was trying to think back of, you know, experiences with my grandparents. My grandparents had a Nintendo Entertainment System, or
Mm,
NES for short.
mm.
So the earliest memory video game I remember playing as a kid with my grandma was Gyromite. I don't know if you remember that game.
I've heard of it, but I've never played it. No.
So basically, there's a man who sleepwalks, and there's these key characters that kind of look like Goombas from Mario, and the objective is to hit these buttons like A and B, and these pillars like go up and down. But if you get caught
Huh.
in between, it squishes them. But
Okay.
he basically, you have to get to the, it's like a maze. You have to get to one side to the other without being attacked, and there's strategy to it, but there's really not too much to it. But that's like one of the first games I remember playing as a kid.
Okay. That so it's more on your puzzle side of the
Yeah,
games.
yeah.
Okay. It's really sounded familiar. It's probably one I've been a big fan of Nintendo, and it's starting to kinda come back to me a little bit. I didn't it have, like, Rob the Robot? Isn't that the game that it used?
I don't remember.
If you didn't have it, I mean, I was just wondering if
Yeah.
you had it because it seems like it wasn't necessary to have, but it was an accessory, and I
Yeah,
think it was for that game.
maybe. I know, are you talking about, like, the little life size, not life size, but the small
Yeah.
robot?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like, actual
grandparents never
robot.
ha yeah, they never had that, so I don't think it was needed in there,
Okay.
but, yeah.
I
I'll have
could
to
be
think about that.
remembering yeah, I could be remembering wrong, but I thought it was that one, so, you see Rob in different, like, Smash Brothers nowadays and stuff, but it was an actual robot. I think it was that game, but,
Mhm.
that's pretty cool, yeah. It's very familiar when you were mentioning it, the more you're talking about it, and I was like, "It sounds familiar, but I've never played that," so that's a cool memory to have with your grandma.
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah. So, well, for me, I if we wanna talk about first memory, we had a Nintendo as well. I remember some people having an Atari 2600, and it wasn't the first game I played, but I remember, going over to someone's house, and they had the actual infamous now ET for Atari
Oh,
2600.
yeah.
I have just a faint memory of it. I was probably 2 or 3 years old. I was not old at all, but it's one of those, like, fuzzy memories, and I remember they thought it was so cool, like, "Oh, look, he moves across," and then years later, I hear how it pretty much crashed the video game it kinda made consumers lose their trust in video games because they thought, "Oh, this is ET," and here it was this horrible game. It's a sad story. It was actually developed by one guy who was kind of under the gun. He had this deadline because they wanted to
Mhm.
release it with the movie. So it's pretty interesting. You have to look it up, but that's one I thought of if, as far as like my first memory of video games that comes to mind. Uh, I actually got to see it at somebody's house. It was pretty interesting even back then. I thought,
Is that the one I think they consider it, like, the worst video game of all time, where ET falls, like,
yes,
in a cave and you can't move forward anymore?
that's it. Yep.
Yeah.
You have to, like his neck extends like in the movie,
Mhm.
and he slowly floats up out of this pit, and you have to time it just right to get out of it, and there's no instruction, you're talking Atari 2600, there wasn't tutorials, there wasn't the internet to look up walkthroughs, so you just had to figure it out, and it was just a frustrating game that didn't tell you what to do, where to go, and you had to, like, have really good reflexes to get, to places. Yeah. Yeah, it's regarded as one of the worst games ever, so Fortunately, that's one of my first early memories.
It's a good memory, but a bad memory, I
Yeah,
guess you could say. So
yeah.
another one I have, and it's funny because I still hear the sound effect like with SpongeBob.
Hmm,
So there's a scene or when it opens and you have the waves of the SpongeBob. So growing up, I always thought of this. I had this connection, or anytime I hear waves, I think of this game. So this game's called Town and Country Surf Designs. It was for the Nintendo Entertainment System.
hmm.
So it's a gorilla with a pink hat, and then there's a man, like a shirtless man. He's got like a wood mask on. You just surf. That's all you do. But I don't know. It was like I think it was probably like my second game I had. My parents actually found the Nintendo at a yard sale nearby when I was a kid, and it
Hmm,
had bunch of games with it, Link and a bunch of other stuff. But that I just remember that game in particularly was like really fun,
hmm.
simple, but yeah, very good game.
Interesting. That's probably all that the Nintendo could process. I mean, there's so many good games on it, but to do a surfing game, I would imagine it would be hard to do much more than just surf on it compared to what the processing power was later on. So that's interesting. I've never played that one either. I can't say. Going into my next moment I can recall, it would be the Nintendo as well. That was like our first system I remember us owning, and we had, of course, Super Mario Brothers, the first one, and we had the Duck Hunt combo with it. The
Hmm. Yeah.
uh, Both of those together go hand in hand for me. We didn't just have one or the other. And overall, just the Nintendo, I would say I put that in as a memory because I was really young at the time. But we had that. We had a game called Paperboy,
Oh
and
yes.
you're on a bike and you try to throw the paper up to the houses, and your aim has to be just right, all the while dodging different obstacles, different, you go in the street, obviously cars, and uh, I think there's like mailboxes and or other things. I'm going off of fuzzy memory. It's been years since I've played it, but I remember playing that all the time. That was one that I really enjoyed playing a lot.
Yeah, that's a really good memory. I have another one that's also NES related. Actually, I just picked it up recently and I haven't played it yet. Is Dr. Mario.
Oh yeah, that's a
I
good one.
I have it out in my garage. I was gonna play it, but again, it's Ohio. It's cold. My garage is cold. And then also golf. Do you remember the old golf for
Yeah,
NES? Yeah,
that
me
had
and my
that.
grandpa used to play that all the time.
That's cool. It was the one with Mario in it, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't think there was any other golf on Nintendo, but, um, that goes into, memory. This'll have kind of a story with it. So, again, also on the Nintendo, we had a one TV. We had a tube TV. That was back then. I
Mhm.
wanna say this was when I was, like, 3 or 4 years old. It would have been, like, 1990 or something, but I remember we had the TV set up in the living room, but I was sick. I don't know why I was sick, like, if I had some kinda flu, but my parents let me sleep in their bed for some reason. I think it was just because I was so young,
Mhm.
and my father actually brought the TV into their bedroom, and he let me play the Nintendo, and he happened to go we had a local IGA. That's where we went to grocery. It was like everything we needed. We were a small
Mhm.
town that we lived in. Anyway, he rented, Super Mario 2 and Techno Bowl. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I remember whenever I think of those games, I think of being sick and in my parents' bedroom playing it because it was just like a cool we had one TV, but, they went to that much trouble for me for some reason. I look back on it with good memories, though, of playing it. Even though I was sick, obviously, I wasn't feeling great, but the memory is there of, playing those games. Whenever I see those games, that comes back to me.
Yeah, so another that those are good memories, but I hate that you were sick, but
Yeah.
are you feeling better now after
Well,
all these years?
yeah, that was 30 plus years ago, so
Okay, so you're feeling great.
yeah, yeah, I'm glad, yeah.
So the next game system I had, there's a quick story behind it. So it was the PlayStation 1, it was the Slim. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
I still have it to this day. My dad had a go-kart he bought at the time, and he was gonna fix it up. He's like, "Hey, you could either buy a PlayStation, which at the time was like $100,
Mhm.
or I can fix up this go-kart and you can have this go-kart." Well, our neighbor kid had a PlayStation. I'm like, "Yes, PlayStation." So I'm we have or the game that we played a lot is Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
every everybody knows that game.
Yeah. That just kinda defined that genre too, like sports. It wasn't just your simulation, it was kind of had arcadey more feel to it.
Yeah.
So, it's a very iconic now, very well-known game, but yeah, that's one I played as well. It wasn't on a PlayStation 1. I think it would have been I had the Game Boy Advance one of that, and then
Mm.
it got re-released on a future system. It might have been even like GameCube or something. But, yeah, that's a good pick as well because there's a lot of that was a good soundtrack too, if I remember. It had some,
Oh,
um,
yeah.
memorable songs on there. But, yeah, I'll go out of the Nintendo age. I was kinda stuck in there, but there's a lot of good memories going back on the Nintendo. This is another one that has a story to it. We went to, when they were still around, a Toys R Us. My father took me and my brother to Toys R Us to get the Super Nintendo. We got it brand spanking new, and what was so cool about it is, my father said we could each pick 1 game out. So, I remember at the time, Ren and Stimpy was, like, the show we watched a lot of, and there was a Ren and Stimpy game, so that was my pick. I can't remember what my brother picked, but, my father went and got he got, like, a baseball game, he got a football, it was just called, like, NFL, there wasn't Madden as far as I can remember. I think that was on Sega Genesis, they didn't have it on Super Nintendo. But he got that. He got for us, I remember him saying something about it being educational, but he got Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego?
Yeah.
So, you had to learn a lot of geography and different things. I remember playing that too. There's a few other games he got, but I just thought it was the coolest thing. We bought this brand new and a bunch of games. It wasn't like we got 1 game and this is all you can play. We had a nice variety to start with it. And back then at Toys R Us, it was the cover of the games displayed, but you had to grab a tag off of the wall
Mhm.
and take it up front because everything was like in this back room, even though it was up front, and that's where you would turn it in. So, those are the memories I have is not necessarily I play those games, but the memory of actually getting them, it still sticks with me because that was back when Toys R Us was just the place to go to. So, it was kind of a treat just to go and experience that with my father and my brother. I still have good memories of that.
I think my neck is still stiff from looking up on those TVs when you would
Yeah.
play. It's like, "All right."
Yeah. The
Little
kiosk.
demos. Yeah.
Yeah. I miss those. They don't really they have demos, but I don't know, they don't have the charm, and
No, they
that could
don't.
be nostalgia talking, but it's like, "Here's a TV, here's a control." It's like the kiosk that you're talking about, it had its own theme going on, like
Yeah.
Nintendo had its own and Sega and so on and so forth, yeah.
Yeah, I think those are actually highly collectible. I've seen people actually
Mhm.
purchase those, have
Oh,
'em
yeah.
displays and stuff, so
Yeah.
another one I actually still have this game. It's scratched up like crazy after 30 plus years. So, it was a baseball game, called Triple Play Baseball,
Oh, yeah.
PlayStation, 1. Me and my dad would spend hours playing this, and there is a level that's hilarious. It's Home Run Derby. So you're in a living room. Yeah, you're nodding. You probably remember
Mhm.
this. So
Yeah.
there is a seagull in a bird cage randomly. If you hit the seagull, it goes, "Ah!" And then the announcer goes, "Who put a seagull in a bird cage?" But you'd have to
Yeah.
break all targets and stuff. But we would play that for years, and I still wanna take it over to my dad's house and hook it up and play it again. I mean, great memories.
Yeah. I can faintly remember that. I don't think I owned it, but I either rented it or someone I knew had it, and I'd play it with them, and Yeah, that's a cool memory because it just kinda jogged my memory on that, like, "Oh, yeah." That's what I was starting to kinda come back to me, but that was yeah, PlayStation 1, that sounds about right. So, good pick on those, and there's so many baseball games for me that I played, uh, growing up. That's a great pick. The next pick I for me of a memory, this is actually not like a home system. I thought I'd mix it up a little bit. It was actually an arcade. We moved to Columbus. My father went to college. He had this guy he knew that actually owned an arcade.
Oh, nice.
So he said, "Hey, you have to come by sometime and check this arcade out." So we went, and I still have this memory in my head. So we went to he was, like, in the back room, and he came out, they got him, and he was like, "Oh, wait just a minute," and then he came back with this bag full of coins, and he just handed them to my dad, and he was just like, "Here you
Nice.
go," and my dad's just looked like, What?" And he's like, "Yeah, have fun. Yeah, here you go." He just went to college with him. It wasn't, like, "Hey, you're a real close friend of mine." He was just really cool that I mean, it could have lasted us probably a week, the amount of coins he gave us. It was so crazy, but we played. I remember there was the, Simpsons arcade game. There was,
Oh, yeah.
uh, like, a bunch of racing games like the NASCAR. That one's kinda notorious in a lot of arcades, but yeah, we just had a blast, and it was all free. It was like unlimited play. Just
Oh, nice.
have at it. It was a so again, I can't remember all the games that were there, but just that was a fun experience of seeing this owner come out with this huge bag. I mean, it was bigger than like your typical grocery bag. I'm talking like I don't know how many gallons big, just full of coins. So it was a really cool memory though.
Nice. Another one I have is I actually bought this system used. Most of this games I've or game systems ever had, I always tend to buy them secondhand from people. So
Yeah.
I have a theme going on. So it was the Nintendo GameCube. Going back to Nintendo, bought from a family friend for like $40 at the time, which was a
Mm,
good deal. One of my all-time favorite Mario games, Super Mario Sunshine, and I
mm.
remember playing it, listening to the band Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, for those who are familiar with that band.
I
Weird
don't think
weird
I would
combination,
I was
but
just
it
about to
worked.
say. I was just about to say I would not have thought of those 2 combinations because the soundtrack for, Mario Sunshine's so happy and beachy, and
Yes.
it's, like, more of a punk feel with Red Jumpsuit
Yeah,
Apparatus, so, hey, if you're into that, I guess, but
it
that's
worked.
different take. Yeah, another memory I can go back to what you were talking about with the kiosk, the display demo. It was actually in a Walmart. We didn't go into Walmart that much back in the '90s. It wasn't as big as it is now, and even now I don't really go to Walmart, but I do remember those kiosks specifically had, Mario 64. My
Ah,
early memories of that game is it was always like a line because at that time there was 1 or 2 other systems that had 3D. There was, like, the Sega Saturn and Atari had Jaguar, but
mhm.
that was a Nintendo 3D system, so it was a big deal, and I really wanted to play it, but there was always a line, and I would be there with my parents, so we just didn't have the time to wait in line for a demo of a game you could maybe play a minute or 2 of, but that's what I think of whenever I think of Mario 64 is that demo, just seeing Mario in 3D for the first time. It was just
Oh, yeah.
as a kid, it was mind blowing to see that.
Yeah, that's huge. That's still one of my favorite games too.
Yeah, yeah.
So so you were saying earlier you have a memory of you being sick playing video games. That's funny because I also have a memory of me being sick. My parents we went to Blockbuster, long RIP Blockbuster. So I remember renting, it was like $7 for a week. It was actually for PlayStation. Rogue Squadron. It's a Star Wars game. You basically just fly around in the
Okay.
desert. It's simple, but I have a core memory of just being sick. I think I had pink eye or something. Uh, maybe I don't remember, but yeah, just playing that game.
Interesting. You said it was for PlayStation?
I think it was yeah, I think it was PlayStation at the time because I think that was the only either PlayStation or I'm gonna have to think about this. I'm
I
pretty
think it
sure it's
was
PlayStation.
I think it was Nintendo 64 because it was an exclusive. Here's me.
Was it? Yeah, I didn't have a Nintendo 64 yet,
Okay.
so I don't remember. I thought it was PlayStation.
There's been
Maybe
so
not.
many Star Wars games too.
Yeah,
If it wasn't that specific one, it might have been a similar one, but
could be.
yeah,
I'll have to
something to
relook
look
it up.
yeah, I was gonna say something to look up, but I thought it was N64 because you said you owned a PlayStation. I'm trying to remember which ones were on there, but what I remember on PlayStation was when episode one came out, that game for was on, PlayStation 1, you could play as, I think it was mostly Obi-Wan, and it was like a bird's eye view.
Okay.
That's another m I didn't, own it or anything. I remember someone having it and being at their house and, going over and seeing that. Yeah, I think of another memory is, to go with you had mentioned a GameCube. That was one that also we went to Toys R Us and got actually on display, they had like this almost cage looking container that all the GameCubes were in. It was a little different setup than when we got the Super Nintendo, but I still remember that being in line for it and kept thinking, "Oh, I hope there's still enough," because there was a long line for it. It was like release day. That was, I think, the only time we ever went the day game system came out. Normally, we would wait maybe a year or 2 afterward, but that was the first time. So that's something that kinda sticks with me, getting that, again, experience. It seems like I almost had as much fun just getting the system or the game more than playing it, but there's lots of memories playing it. That's just the what I think back on fondly, though, is experience of actually getting it, and back then, you didn't have a cell phone to, get all the newest news on it, so you were anxious to get it, and you would read the box. You had a booklet inside, you'd read that on the drive home. It wasn't so much, "Okay, I know about this," and get it like you do today. It was a different experience, I guess, back then,
Oh
overall,
yeah,
so
the build up,
yeah,
the
yeah, exactly.
anticipation.
Yeah, it's just not the same, I feel like, today, but, that's just how things go. They change over time, but alright, well, is there maybe one more quick one you have, Ben, that you can think of, you can mention?
Yeah, so going on to the PlayStation 2 part, I ended up buying a PlayStation from a yard sale down the street for like 55 bucks. Again, another product. So, I got a bunch, but my standout has to be probably my favorite game out of the PlayStation 2. It's a lesser known game. It was called MX Superfly. It's a motocross game.
Okay, yeah.
And there's like a level where you uh, go through and you have to go up on this like ramp or somehow I forget exactly how it is, but you get up and there's like a spaceship and there's an alien and then you can unlock this motocross rider alien and go around. But my biggest thing is I remember the soundtrack was by my favorite band at the time, Hoobastank. So that was an awesome soundtrack. But
Yeah,
yeah, great, great video game.
cool. Yeah, that's what also kinda made a video game sometimes. It would display, like, a band. It was a hot way to get a people to go out and buy it, so I'm sure that would kinda helped you make that decision too when you were going to buy or get it. One last one I can think of, again, you mentioned there's tons. We're just gonna mention a few, but PlayStation, I remember we actually traded our Nintendo 64 in for that one,
Okay.
and I was able to get a bunch of games with it, and it was the first system that we got that wasn't Nintendo actually, because up to that point, it was all Nintendo. But I remember just kind of being blown away of, "Oh, there's CDs," there's cartridge up to that point.
Mhm.
And I recall that opening for the PlayStation. So that's kind of my gaming memory, turning that on, that startup music. It's famous now. People use that as like a nostalgia. This'll, remind you of being a kid again. I was there because that boot up sound was just so different, and now it's just like a almost like a ringtone to your life a little bit when you think back on those days of playing and everything. So, well, we could go on and on. There's so many gaming memories, so many over the years, games we've played, but this is a great start. This might be a topic we revisit at some point because there's
Oh,
just so
yeah.
much we can do when we try to mention. And for all you listeners out there, be sure to write us in, leave us a voicemail about your gaming memories. We'll be able to give you a shout out on that. Before we go into our last topic, we're actually going to have a new segment. We're going to give some of our listeners a shout out. So we're going to go into our fan mail.
Fan mail.
So first, we have a voicemail we want to make sure we play. Let's go ahead and play that.
This is Seth, longtime listener, first time caller. The first Super Bowl commercial I thought of was the one where a guy is bragging about his phone. It can do this, it can do that. The other guy says, well, my phone has a built in security system, and chucks the phone at him. The other was the VW commercial where the boy was dressed as Darth Vader and thinks he uses the Force to start the car. Thanks, love the show.
Well, thank you very much, Seth, for calling in. Those were great picks. I don't remember the first Super Bowl spot that you mentioned, but I do remember the Volkswagen with the Star Wars Darth Vader. That's a really good one, and I'm surprised that we didn't mention that one. Actually, that was a good one. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I kinda remember the security phone, episode, him throwing the phone at the other guy. But yeah, definitely the Star Wars kid one's really funny, one of my favorites.
Yeah, that's a one I've seen lists of, best Super Bowl commercials. That's normally in the top 10. That's one of the more well done Super Bowl commercials. So shame on us for not mentioning it, but thank you for calling in again. We appreciate it. We want to make sure to give you a shout out for that. So Ben actually has some comments too. Why don't you go ahead and read those that we have as well?
All right, so this is from Cooper Parker. He says, "This might be a wild hot take, but I think the Doritos puppy monkey baby deserved at least an honorable mention. That one was wild." I kinda remember that.
I kinda do, yeah. There's the E-Trade, baby. That one, I think wasn't it in this year? They had that for, like, they were playing pickleball.
I think so, if I remember.
Yeah, when I think of baby, I think of that one, but I'm not remembering the, monkey baby
Monkey baby and, Doritos,
and Doritos.
something to do with
Okay,
I kinda it's I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch it, but yeah, it sounds familiar.
okay. Yeah, well, you just gave us a great one to look up. Well, I like going back and seeing anything that we missed, so thank you for that, Cooper. Make sure to give you a proper shout out for that, and we'll do our homework better next time.
And we got one more from Kent. He said, "You talked a lot about Budweisers, but you didn't mention the Clydesdales."
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe I don't know, they never impressed me. Hot take, if you wanna call it that. I know that they have that, special with them, and they're not bad, I guess, but I guess I enjoy the funny side of them. Those are the more drama, serious and touching, moving. I think there's the one year was, like, the little dog. They go
Yeah.
up to it, and they put their nose to it. It's like it's a cute and touching commercial, but I guess me personally, I go for more of the funny stuff. That's just me though.
I thought I kinda remember I thought there was one where it was like Clydesdales and then there was a zebra as the referee, and then, maybe that's a separate commercial, but they're, like, all kind of playing football, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and rewatch that one. It kinda
Y
came to mind.
yeah, that one was pretty good. When you mentioned that, I remember that one was pretty good. I don't bash them. They're solid commercials, but I guess it's just not my one I would have thought to mention maybe on there. Maybe we'll give a but more proper shout out to those types of, commercials if we ever do a part 2. We'll keep
Yeah,
that one in mind.
thank you, Kent, for that comment.
Yeah, that's great. We appreciate all of our listeners, and again, be sure to if we miss stuff, whatever the topic is, or if it's off topic, if you have any questions, definitely be sure to write us in or leave us a voicemail. We'll be sure to give you a proper shout out. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and wrap things up by going into our last segment.
Last drop. Brought to you by coffee.
Take it away, Ben.
A flight from Amsterdam to Detroit was quickly turned around when maggots started to fall out on a female passenger. The flight crew on board found an improperly packed carry on bag that contained a rotten fish wrapped in newspaper. One man said they found out there was a rotten fish in there. I did see everyone's reaction to the bag being opened, which was just an immediate pinching of the nose. The flight was less than an hour into its 9-hour flight. So just remember, kids, most flights can make you fish sticks, so no reason to bring on your own fish. That's what I have.
Yeah, that just sounds awful. Wow. 9-hour flight, and that was at the beginning.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least it wasn't halfway through, and they had 4 hours one way, 4 hours back.
Oh goodness. I feel for those people, but thank you, Ben. That's
You're welcome.
good to know that something you can maybe prepare for. Maybe bring one of those uh clothes pinchers for your nose just in case that happens to you if you go on a flight. So, well, good to know. But before we wrap things up, let's make sure we do our due diligence. So, Ben, why don't you tell everyone where they can find us at?
So we're on Instagram, Facebook, search Mustaches and Coffee. We're also on Twitter at Stash, STASHE and Joe. You can email us mustachesandcoffee@yahoo.com. We're also now on Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and our iHeartRadio.
Great. Well, thank you, Ben. And as a reminder, if you got us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating if you can. We appreciate it. That will help us be found by more people. We can continue to grow. We're looking at some different ideas on prizes, different contests we could possibly do. So that'll just help it all the more so. Again, we appreciate all of you. We appreciate ones that wrote in. And again, feel free to drop us a line, leave us a voicemail, all of that. We encourage it. And we thank you again for all of that. So, as we always say, don't bash the stash.
I need espresso for the depresso.
Bye, everybody.